Peace, family. It's Brother Rich, Underground Railroad Productions, UGR TV. We in the house with Red Pill, live on 125th. Yes, and Blue building with DJ Kool Herc over there. Red, I know your son is a big football fanatic. I seen him earlier with the football, so I was talking to Red. I said, yo, I want to get Red's sentiments on the whole Richard Sherman thing with the comments that he made. I know your son probably seen it, and I know at the same time your son hears you talk. So I know that how impressionable these celebrities and these athletes are on the youth. He received a big backlash from it, from other commentators. Boyce Watkins just did something. You know, a lot of black movements is saying, yo, like, we understand the black on black thing, but we never hear white people say white on white. Like, y'all gotta stop this shit. What's your sentiments on what Richard Sherman said and what all the communities and all the movements had to say in reference and rebuttal to what he said?
That was an interesting press conference that he had for multiple reasons. I'm going to answer your question first before we get into the other reasons. What he said was understandable, you know, coming from Richard Sherman, but it was not accepted. I would say that it was not acceptable because simple fact that he gave us 50% of his intellect. That man is not that's not a dumb Negro. That's not a $40 million slave. When we talk about the intellect of a Richard Sherman has proven himself to be very articulate and well-studied and researched, as you know, on multiple occasions. I remember the time that he adjusted Stephen A. Smith on Sports Nation. That's a classic clip. And he also received backlash over his African features when he had the altercation with the Crabtree and the European woman during his European sportscaster during the game that he had against the 49ers. That was a historic rant or situation that took place. The backlash that he received on Twitter was very racist, and they were talking about his features, the features of his African features, such as his nose and his lips and things of that nature, and his complexion and his hair, which ultimately led him to do more research, you know. And when he made his rebuttal or his comeback, he was addressing European psychology, and he was addressing European or white supremacy mindsets, and was basically, you know, refuting it and giving it rebuttals and whatnot. Fast forward to the situation that we see now, what he was doing was addressing his name that was put in the press because there was a meme done by an individual who I won't even mention at this point. Okay, I'm not going to say his name on film. But it was an individual who's not inside of the conscious community. He's on the fringe of the community. He is what is known as the internet. He's a social media personality, and he's in a lot of controversy right now due to his remarks that he made dealing with police shootings and things of that nature. Then, because he put me in a meme before, so I know how this person works. He does a lot of trolling, and he does a lot of irresponsible, he puts people's faces and names in the memes that he creates. If anybody is not familiar with a meme is, that's the pictures, and you put comments or you put basic, you put words to the pictures. They might not necessarily be what that picture was intentionally meaning or what that person may have said.
It's reappropriating a picture, right, and creating a satire out of it, whereas we understand the parable of a picture being worth 1,000 words. You know what I'm saying? They capture your particular frame, and it becomes an Android meme. You know what I'm saying? It becomes an Android meme. So this particular image and this personage has a life of its own now. You know, they pull from a file of your life and create a whole nother you, and they reappropriate it. So that's what was done with Richard Sherman in regards to his connection to this individual who is, the subject of much scrutiny, right now nationally from them folks. And Richard Sherman, I'm sure even if he feels a particular way, I don't know if anybody wants to be associated with that level, of scrutiny. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I'll let you finish though.
So he basically distanced himself from that person, and by proxy, he addressed Black Lives Matter, hashtag Black Lives Matter, the George Soros funded LBGT activist group. Okay? And he spoke about Black Lives Matter, and he spoke about what he feels Black Lives Matter's purpose should be, or where it is that they're not being active. He felt that he should address the fact that they're not being active in black neighborhoods dealing with black issues, you know what I'm saying, around, black people for some,
The debate has always been, when black on black violence, when it occurs, the person that commits the crime 90-something% of the time goes to jail, gets long life, gets long sentences, gets long punishments. They get dealt with. When an officer kills a black person, hurts a black person, whatever, there's often always justification for that. When Raheem kills Tyrone, the system doesn't justify Raheem while Raheem is killing Tyrone. They say that shit is wrong. Raheem, regardless of whatever happened, your ass is getting locked up for a long time. Why should, because you have on a uniform, all of a sudden the rules change? Because you're a government official, all of a sudden the rules change. So this is the argument. We understand that black on black violence is wrong, just like we understand white on white violence or Asian on Asian violence. And on top of that, there's no term called Asian on Asian violence or white on white violence, what makes it even more suspicious. So this is the argument that you're getting with this whole thing. So what do you think about when a person comes from that angle and looks at it from that perspective, Red?
I mean, policy enforcers are, they work for corporations, and their job is to protect property. And they look at 14th Amendment citizens as, you heard Mike Huckabee talk about it. They're not considering the citizenship of, America as human. 3/4 or 3/5 or whatever. Like, that is a mind state that they walk with. That is a mind state that they carry with themselves. That is a mind state that pervades these police departments and the fraternal order of police. They're looking at you as property, you know what I'm saying, that they have control, that they have all rights over, and they're protecting other corporate interests that they feel are more important in your life. So you're seeing it play out. They're not like having press conferences where they're admitting it, or they're not, the police chief is not coming out when he has to address the people and saying it blatantly to your face. But when you look at it, when you put it on the scales and you weigh it out, then you'll be able to sit back and say, hold on, they obviously have some kind of special prosecution. They obviously are immune to certain types of prosecution due to the doctrines that that protect them. So, I don't know if I answered the question or not, but.
So with that being said, do you think that justifies why the Black Lives Matter movement is harder on police brutality than black on black crime?
Well, the Black Lives Matter movement, to my knowledge, hasn't addressed the fact that I just brought up, the fact that these are policy officers working for corporations against people who they view as property. That's a great argument that I would love Black Lives Matter to have on a Bernie Sanders stage or any other presidential candidate or hopeful that they disrupt. You know, they're disruptors, but the argument and the foundation of the argument is like that shit is all the way. It's like an old '60s argument. It's not updated with the information, a smidgen of the information that we've been exposed to by the people who have exposed the information about what we're dealing with and who we're dealing with. You know, they're not addressing nationality. They're not addressing Dred Scott. They're not addressing three-fifths, the whole shit that's on the book that they're looking at you as less than human. They're not addressing, you know, the origins of white people. They're not addressing, you know, the whole, you know, they're not addressing house Negroes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see them really going hard the way that we need people to go hard. The way that, you know, because they've done some stuff that touched me emotionally. Like when they said the whole thing, if I die, don't call Al Sharpton and all of it. I mean, on the surface, that's some powerful shit. It riled up emotions within me. But when we're talking about hardcore information, unrefutable information, like getting in front of Hillary Clinton and completely adjusting her and laying down all of the infractions that her and her husband has caused black people, the shit that they did to Harlem, you know, the mass incarceration under the Clinton campaign or the Clinton administration, the draconian laws that were drafted, the drug laws and all of that stuff, like, they're not going in with that at this point, and that's what's needed to you know, you have to hit them with this information that they can't refute.
This is an election year, so what Black Lives Matter should be representing is some sort of political action committee, because what they're talking about is politics. You know what I'm saying? What people in these streets are talking about when it comes to justice, they're talking about politics, because that's involving the system. That's not outside of the system. They're not talking like this other individual, I'll say his name, King Noble. They're not talking anarchy. You know what I'm saying? They're not talking about destroying the system. They're not talking about subversion. They're talking about working within the confines of the system. So they're talking politics. They're talking political, but yet there's no political action being formulated to say this is what melanated voters need from either one of you particular parties. So they're missing the opportunity at this particular time, this junction in time, which is key, to seize the moment, you know what I'm saying, to seize the conversation and to actually, you know, move the ball forward. As much as people, again, criticize the quote-unquote civil rights movement, because this is a continuation of the civil rights movement. This is civil disobedience. You know what I'm saying? This is not what we would consider Malcolm X level of protesting. You know what I'm saying? This ain't nobody grabbing their gats, storming the courthouses or anything of that nature. Like I said, they're looking for quote-unquote justice within the realms and the confines of a political system. So with that being the case, like I said, even with civil rights, Martin Luther King was successful in creating policy change at a federal level. You know what I'm saying? People might look at it today, how they look at it, and they might criticize the way that he went about it, but everybody's a card-carrying member of this particular corporation. They're citizens. So he pushed policy on a federal level. You feel me? Within the company and the corporation that you're voting for, the next candidate that you pay taxes to, you getting with this program. You're not outside of the confines of this shit, so cut it out. So he moved the ball within that particular system. That's profound. That's never been done. You feel me? So they need to approach it like that, as a political platform, you know, and look for some sort of political redress, put the pressure on these candidates, you know, come with point systems, come with fact-finding researchers and things of that nature, you know what I'm saying, and use social media a little bit more effective to put the clamp down on these people that are making public appearances. You might even want to pick a fight with Trump if you have an agenda, if you have a platform. You gauge him in, you pull him in, you bait him in for that publicity. You feel me? But you go hard, you go for the jugular. You got to box these people in. So they're showing that they're just a little too slick for that outdated form of protest. You know, so we lack this think tank where our minds, our sharp minds are not meeting with one another. You know, I hear the brother D-Ray, you know, when he gets on these platforms, he's kind of sharp. You know, you would think that he's somebody right outside of the conscious community. But they're stating facts, you know, without actually bringing these people to the mat for accountability. Like, what is that particular platform looking to do other than to bring attention to the fact that there are transgressions happening against melanated people? Social mainstream media's response is always going to be to point towards the statistics, because they getting their talking points from Giuliani and all them other people that done cook these folks. They always gonna point to the 97%. They're always gonna point to, you know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't marching for this this white kid that got killed for the by the police. Y'all ain't watching. Yeah, y'all ain't marching in Chicago. Y'all ain't doing this. Y'all ain't doing that. And it's a tired conversation. There's rebuttals to that. But we're not seeing the necessary people getting selected to be the mouthpieces to go up there and shoot that shit down.
And
so now
where's the proliferation of social media? You know, where's the usage of social media, not hashtag campaigns, but where's the usage of social media through the YouTube clips or through other things to bring forth talking points, like solid foundation talking points to, you know, you don't have to convince these Europeans of anything. It's time to indict them. It's time to put the information out there, because it's all out there. So like Blue was saying, there's just a lot that, you know, they have a lot of potential. The potential is there. You know, then a lot of stuff about the funding and what can they say versus what can't they say, that starts coming into play, because we know that George Soros, you know, cut that $30 million check. We know that he was the one who made Ferguson a 24-hour news cycle. We know that he was responsible for funding not only Black Lives Matter, but some of these other quote unquote black activist groups before Ferguson. He was already funneling that money prior to that, building them up. So it's like, you know, is there something that you can't talk about versus what you can talk about?
Do you think there's a difference between Elijah Muhammad accepting money from that Texas millionaire in comparison to George Soros funding Black Lives Matter? Because the Black Lives Matter get a lot of criticism on the internet for getting funding, I guess, from George Soros. But Elijah, from what I've read and from what I've heard, was taking money from I'm sure you or Blue know his name, from the Texas millionaire. So is there a difference there?
I would say that there's a difference. This is a different time period that we're living in. There were different results. All right, the results that the Nation of Islam was able to bring forth. Not to say that whatever the funding that he was receiving from the billionaire or the millionaire funded the whole operation. You know, there was funding that was coming out of Harlem, from the streets of Harlem towards the nation and whatnot. There was different, you know, individuals, you know, out here that was in these streets that was putting money up on the low and whatnot. And also a lot of other people that contributed and funded. So to say that that's the same, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I don't know the politics behind that Texan billionaire or millionaire, the reason why he was putting the money up. You know what I mean? I know that they were talks about different, the fact that the Nation of Islam was a separatist group, and the fact that they had like KKKs that were separatists, you know, because Garvey met with KKK leaders. You know, they had the commies, the communists were always attracted to the quote-unquote black power movements or the black separation movements. You had the Ku Klux Klan, you had the Nazi Party. You know, they've always been attracted to the fact that they had groups amongst us that wanted to separate and didn't want to have anything to do with Europeans or pilgrims. Then you had these other groups that were like, shit, I'm with that as well, because we don't want to have anything to do with quote-unquote African Americans or Africans and whatnot. So they met in the middle as that was some of their interests met right there, right? So, you know, to have the Koch brothers or to have Soros or some of these other figures who have clear and direct political orders or political ideologies, they have their own purposes and whatnot, I wouldn't necessarily co-sign that. You know, I'm not sure.
You know, success is a personal thing, and there's different levels of success depending on what your definition of it is. When you hear people like Richard Sherman make statements about black on black violence, and you hear other celebrities, you know, celebrities get criticized a lot for not being more socially active in what's going on in this world. Do you think that when you try so hard to achieve something and you achieve it and you're rewarded greatly for it and you make it millions of dollars, does that make you less, you know, not as sensitive when it comes to issues like black on black violence or black injustice, because you know what you went through to get where you are, and you know what you overcame, you know all the hurdles that you overcame. So the first thing in their mind is, yo, I did it, they could do it. And there's thousands of stories like this, not just celebrities, but black businessmen and women who feel as though, yo, I come from the bottom, nigga. Like I did this. Like, yo, it's possible. So do you think that overcoming obstacles factor and having wealth factor, these millions in your pocket or in your bank, does that make a person less sensitive when you got these groups running up on the stage screaming Black Lives Matter?
Okay. Now, what I won't do is pigeonhole all celebrities or, you know, people that are fitting in that category that you just described as having the same mind state, right? But what I can say is, based on observation or based on the results that they've brought to the table as a result of becoming multimillionaires, almost even becoming billionaires, you know, I'm a person that likes to look around and just see the actions and the deeds of those people, whether they are reverberating in my surroundings or not. And as far as I could tell, from the 360-degree angle that I could spin around and look, I don't see too many of their contributions to the struggle. I don't see too much of their philanthropy or charitable work. You know, they come from the same neighborhoods that many of us hail from. They're not oblivious to the struggles. They're not oblivious to the issues. They're not oblivious to some of the things that are needed in our neighborhoods to help uplift our people who have definitely fallen, you know, over the past few decades. If the brothers and sisters were born in the 70s or the 80s, they're familiar with the crack, the whole crack plague that has afflicted us. They're familiar with the chemical wars that have afflicted us. They're familiar with the lack of healthy food, healthy water, and all kind of other things that our people are suffering, you know, from. So they're also familiar with the good life. Because when I was in the industry and when I was around quote unquote celebrities, what I did notice was they like to remove themselves from situations or from surroundings and environments that remind them of their former self and put themselves, the illusion of inclusion. They like to include themselves in environments and in circles that are not dealing with everyday stress. They're not dealing with everyday issues. They're not dealing with poverty mind states. They're not dealing with dangerous surroundings. And I'm not saying that to condemn, and I'm not saying that to talk against, because your environment is directly, you know, affects your DNA. And we just did a clip, Chilling in the Waterfalls in Harlem, where we talked about the effects of your environment, being in a positive environment, being able to channel certain kind of thoughts and energies and things of that nature. So I wouldn't talk down on a life choice that brothers and sisters that have the means to do so, to change their environment, choose to do that. No, I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is, it depends on the heart of the man and the woman. It depends on the mind state. Even before they got that money, what is their foundation? How were they raised by both their community, their religious systems, or their traditions, and also their parents? How were they raised?
Now let's put something in perspective, right? Brothers get on and do anything within their community to get to a certain place and plateau where they can remove themselves from the very same community that they made a living by talking about, or they was doing dirt at that particular time. Like dude was like, yo, I'm doing this to feed my mama, but the first thing that you do is get fresh. The first thing that you do is get a whip, and then you call yourself moving out, right? To get around them folks. Ironically enough, them same folks is moving right back into that same neighborhood that you was running away from, and now the property value on that same neighborhood has skyrocketed. You feel me? Why are they able to see the beauty in the place that you condemn and consider hell, but those are your humble beginnings? You feel me? But yet and still, like, all of this dirt is being done for them to quote unquote live the good life. Why is the good life always around somebody other than your people? Why has there never been a template set for the good life to look like a world or life or community or surroundings that you personally build? Because the people got the bread to build a community. It don't take but a few thousand, you know what I'm saying, to get you some land and build your community. If you just want people like you around you and you want to cut other people, you could just do it for your family. But that's not what's being done. So I don't know whether it's what they used to tell us back in the days, that there's a secret clause in the contract. The dudes can't come back to the hood and do this, that, and the other. I just seen LeBron send a few hundred kids to college. So, you know, that's honorable. I don't know if that clause actually exists. I don't know if it's real. And there's been other entertainers that have done situations and things like that that go unmentioned on purpose. They don't even want the notoriety. They don't even want the fame and the acclaim, the accolades. They just want to have it done. And then there's other people that got the foundations and they do it through that. You feel me? But I see that there's not necessarily anybody that's running out at the forefront to be like, yo, I'm the poster child for this. You know what I'm saying? Let me be the poster child for helping my people. So I don't know whether there's something psychological in the back of their minds to say, damn, what's the quickest way that a nigga get taken out of here? Oh, helping their people? Yeah, I don't want that platform. Let's leave that stage empty. Yeah, I'm be on over here on this stage. You know what I'm saying?
For telling them to twerk something. Shit, I'm getting it's safer to kill a nigga on wax. Ain't too many ramifications towards that. There's a reward system set up to do everything outside of the question that you asked, which is coming in to help. Because what's the first thing? Shit, if I come in there and help one, all them niggas gonna be on my back. I'm gonna go broke trying to help them. You know, our people are such a, you know what I'm saying? They feel that our people in such a downtrodden state that it's almost as if our people would leech onto them, you know what I mean? Negating the fact that they know that if you came out of the neighborhood with a talent and a skill that you made millions off of, chances are there are thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe millions in the same neighborhoods that are just like you. Right. You're not so lucky, you're not so special just to negate the fact that you came out with all of this. You came from some of the worst conditions. You know what I mean? But you still managed to have this gift. So what about little Ray Ray and them that's suffering the same way that you suffered with mayonnaise sandwiches and rodents and roaches and all of these things? I mean, poor education.
We just have to be real with one another and admit that something has changed. You know what I'm saying? We have to admit that something has changed, because even back in the days when you had hustlers on the block, you feel me? They always set money aside for the dude in their community that they knew was the artist, or he was a scientist, you know. Damn, shorty was good in science class. He did that science project. You know what I'm saying? Let's make sure we put this bread together and make sure that he get to a good school. They was sending people to school. They made sure the kids go on the trips. They did all these things, and they was the hustlers. They was under the scrutiny of the law. You know what I'm saying? They was taking those risks. So what happened where you have an entertainer who's from this neighborhood, who talks about this neighborhood, who benefits from, you know, being wearing that badge, Because no entertainer can enter the realm of entertainment without having a hood to represent. You know what I'm saying? That's almost an anomaly. So everybody's flagging their hood. Everybody's calling their neighborhood out. But then they don't want to go back and enrich that particular same neighborhood. You feel me? So it just goes back to this whole concept of cost versus value. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's headed and looking at the cost. You know what I'm saying? Damn, what will this cost me? You feel me? How much of cost can I, how many checks can I stack to accumulate this bread? But the value is in the children. The value is in the community. The value is in the very same things that made you who you are. Whether it was the pressure that turned you into the diamond or not, you still know in your surroundings there were people around you that were special. So somebody might, if they're inclusive in that person's entourage, they might bring them along. Like LeBron, he brought his whole team with him, and his team became his management. You know what I'm saying? And there's other rappers that bring their entourage along, and some of them might become management and stylists and things of that. They become actors along with, you know what I'm saying? So, like Pac was part of Digital Underground's entourage at the time, and he became, he landed the part in Juice. So there's things that people do for their immediate circle, but I mean, admittingly, we don't see enough of them coming back with the programs or the fundraisers, or I'm gonna come back to this school and we're gonna see who in this school has a perfect score or the 4.0 GPA, or you know what I'm saying, this person is the smartest in their class. I'm gonna make an endorsement and things of that nature. Like, that's really how you enrich and better your community and put value back into learning and education and into brilliance. And you just make investments into your surrounding. That's how you uplift your hood.
And the fact that I belong to this community, we got the Sabies, the Dr. Sabies out there. You know what I'm saying? We got the Phil Valentines, the Hemmets, the Dr. Blairs, and the fact that we have all of these millionaires and, multi-millionaires that exist. I don't know what they've contributed to breast cancer research or, AIDS walks and all of these other charities. I know that they haven't necessarily contributed to the community. I know they haven't fed the teachers. I know that the Dr. Benz and the Dr. Clarks, they weren't being, the philanthropy wasn't necessarily attached to their names from our quote unquote, talented tenths, or those of us who were millionaires based off of entertainment or sports and things of that nature. They wasn't taking care of the intelligentsia of the community. It doesn't trickle down to where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not 100% sure as to their contributions to what it is that we've been doing as a people. You know what I mean? I can't speak for that. But according to the conversations that I have with my comrades and my contemporaries, nobody is coming to cut a check over where we're at. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody making it rain, you know what I'm saying, over here in these organizations. So I don't know. KTLempowerment@gmail.com. You know what I mean? Hit us up, questions, comments, whatever it is that you want to build about, hit us on the email. Peace.